I was standing in the airport and I was watching my dad load onto the airplane. And I saw the plane backing away from the terminal and I started crying. And I asked my mom, is this how that whole scenario played out? And she was like, I don't know how you remember that, son, but that's exactly how it went. Like, wow. And I kept having these dreams and I felt the need to talk to her about that. So I think that might have been the day that my anxious attachment, my abandonment wounds were birthed. Hey, what's going on, my beautiful people? This is Certified Life and Relationship Coach, Coach Court. On this YouTube channel, we talk about everything from attachment styles to rebound relationships to helping you heal from breakups. If this is something that interests you, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. I really would appreciate it. In today's video, we're going to talk about how I became a secure attacher. And I want to give you guys a little bit of a disclosure here. I am recovering from some type of cold. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going around, but a lot of even my clients have had it. So if you hear me cough, it's not the vids, all right? It's not the vids, it's something different. But today I wanted to talk to you guys about how I got to here where I am as far as my secure attachment. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a little foresight into the future. I'm not completely secure. I have fearful avoidant tendencies. And as I tell you guys my story about my life, then you may understand how I got here. So where do we start? Let's start with when I started dating. I started dating really early on in my life. And this, I look back and I tried to understand why I decided to start dating so young. I think it was for a lot of validation. I grew up in St. Louis. My mom was a single mom. My dad went to the military when I was 3. And it's super interesting because I have these conversations with my dad and he tells me about how some of the things unfolded. And the thing about kids, we always think that something's wrong with us, like we're the cause for things to happen. I had no clue that he went off to the military. I just didn't. I thought that, oh, I'm a flawed kid. And I literally have a memory when I was 3 years old. Had this conversation with my mom. I was asking her, I think it was Thanksgiving, around this time. My birthday's coming up, so I'm trying to figure out what age I was. I want to say it was like 20 years ago. I was probably 22, 23. And I asked her about a dream that I was constantly having. I was having this reoccurring dream where I had this little pillow pet and I was standing in the airport. I don't know if you guys have seen what pillow pets are. It's like this little man-shaped deal. That was a pillow that I slept with all the time. And I drug it everywhere with me. I was really anxiously attached to that pillow pet. And my grandma made me throw it away. And that was like a very devastating day for me. But I was standing in the airport and I was watching my dad load onto the airplane. And I saw the plane backing away from the terminal and I started crying. And I asked my mom, is this how that whole scenario played out? And she was like, I don't know how you remember that, son, but that's exactly how it went. Like, wow. And I kept having these dreams and I felt the need to talk to her about that. So I think that might have been the day that my anxious attachment, my abandonment wounds were birthed. And up until that point, I don't remember anything else, but that was definitely a core memory for me. So I started dating when I was around 13, 14. And I can tell you that every person that I dated pretty much either left me, cheated on me, or abandoned me. But I can't blame them for it because I was partially part of that reason why it happened. I was an anxious person. I was always triggered whenever someone pulled away, whenever someone wasn't showing up for me. I felt like, oh no, they're losing me. So I became extra pleasy, extra needy. And that's just not, as I've gotten this age, I realized that that's really not good, attractive energy right there. So I had a lot of different people that I was dating early on. And I blame it on my environment too. We kind of glamorize dating, having relationships, the music that we were listening to. We listened to a lot of R&B music, a lot of love stories. And really, I had every ingredient to become an anxious attacher. I was raised by women, essentially. I live with my aunt, my mom, sister, a couple female cousins, and it was like, I saw the things that they were going through. Sorry, Mom, I'm over disclosing here, but I saw the things that you guys were going through, and it made me never want to hurt a woman. And that didn't pan out too well for me, because at the same time, I wasn't taught how to advocate for myself, communicate my own needs. I was pretty much a walking doormat. So as I started to get older and something like snapped with me, I think it might have been my high school sweetheart, really left a big wound in me. And I just kind of snapped. And that was the day I feel like I might have turned into a fearful avoidant. And whenever I'm working with my clients, I tell them that if you're an anxious person and you were in unhealthy relationships or you're in toxic dynamics, you run the risk of becoming a fearful avoidant, because you'll always have that anxious side of you, but there's something about that snapping. And this is not, I think the fearful avoidant was always there. Based on my community that I was raised in, I don't think, well, I actually, there's several tests out there. And the early test that I took about, adverse childhood experiences it was pretty simple. It didn't say anything about, your community that can cause you to have different type of attachment wounds. I grew up in a very loving, supportive environment, but my community, I felt very unsafe. I felt bullied. I felt like I was an outcast. I wasn't a person that, had a lot of friends. And I'm gonna just be honest, until I started playing sports, I didn't really gel with people in my community. I was a loner. But the different types of traumas that I experienced out in the community definitely birthed some fearful avoidant tendencies in me. The volatility, the snapping on people when I felt a certain type of way. And that's not only fearful avoidant tendencies. You can be something else and have those type of tendencies. But I tend to see it a lot with people who grew up in those type of dynamics. People who I coach that are from overseas, that are from, honestly, Palestine and Iraq, and they actually have like some fearful avoidant tendencies when I see them come and talk to me. So after my high school sweetheart, I kind of just snapped. And I kind of just said, you know what? I'm not anxiously attaching to anyone. Till I got married. Then that's when those anxious tendencies started to come out again. So it was like a sway back and forth. If you guys have ever taken the attachment style quiz, it's going to change with the different type of relationship dynamics that you're in. And for me, I was swaying back and forth from that fearful and anxious. It was never a secure attacher. My secure attachment was always conditional, which means if a person is showing up a certain way, I'm great, I'm secure. But you have to be with a secure person for that to stick, for you to actually relearn and rewire some of those narratives and those negative thinkings and negative thinking and reactions that you have in a relationship. So that marriage ended, right? Moving forward, a couple other relationships failed. And I look back and I think about, how many relationships did I ever break off? I never really broke off any relationships. The relationships that I knew were unhealthy, the relationships that I knew wasn't heading in the right direction, definitely were the ones that I was the most attracted to. The people who wasn't showing up or investing as much in me as I was in them. I guess to a degree you can say that I was a nice guy, but you guys already know about the nice guys. And nice guys doesn't mean that we're flawless. I mean, because I read this book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. And in the book, he talked about nice guy syndrome. And nice guys are actually guys who are very manipulative to a degree, because a lot of their niceness isn't simply because they want to just be a nice guy. They're looking for something in return. And as I was reading this book, I'm thinking, well, that kind of sounds a lot like anxious attachment. Like it's always a condition. Like we're waiting for some type of return on our investment. And if we don't get it, we'll do things unhealthily. We'll cheat, we'll form resentment, we'll protest, we'll do all these things to make sure that we get some type of receipts on what we've invested in. It wasn't until my last really horrible breakup that made me do some internal thinking. And this is ridiculous that I'm age 35. At that time, I was 35, 36, really processing and trying to understand What am I getting wrong here? I went to school for sociology, and then our sociology course, I took a lot of psychology classes, and I remember I did some courses, and I did some continuing education credits on attachment styles. And at the time, I'm thinking that's not me. I don't need to know that information. But as I start going through my old notes, because I saved a lot of my old books, old training, old courses and stuff about attachment style theory, and I'm like, this applies to my life right away when I first started dating. And that's where I started my healing journey. I immediately reached out and got a coach. I started studying attachment style theory like no one's business. And I can tell you that I kind of have like a life hack here, right? The career that I have, I'm able to bounce ideas, help people come up with different tools, and really heal myself through helping other people heal. So, I mean, it's kind of not fair the way that I went about it, because all I think about is attachment style theories, relationships, healing. All I talk about, my client base, are all about heartache, heartbreak, and anxious attachment, and helping understand what an avoidant is going through. So my career is kind of helping me out in that aspect. But you guys can actually do that yourself. And the one way that I saw that worked the most effectively is get yourself a therapist. Get yourself someone who you can model a healthy relationship with. And if you know for a fact that you have an insecure attachment wound, reach out to the opposite sex. It's important to balance out that masculine and feminine energy, right? And this is just my opinion. I'm not trying to tell you guys what exactly to do. This is what worked for me. This is what worked with people that I've seen in the past. Another thing that I did is I started journaling every day. I started challenging my thoughts. Journaling helped me challenge my thoughts, because you ever notice that when you're like triggered and you're an anxious attacher, or if you're a fearful avoidant for sure, you'll start texting something, you'll send it, you'll tell yourself, don't send that message, and then it's sent off. You're like, why did I do that? So you know what I replaced that with? I started journaling instead of sending those messages that I wanted to send. And I would maybe wait a day, look back on those notes, see that, oh man, this is just ridiculous. Why would I ever, this didn't even pan out the way I thought it was going to pan out. What was I thinking at that time? It's kind of a way to get those thoughts out there, put them on paper, get them out in front of you, and let you know whether or not it's something that's actually serious, or if it's just completely fabricated in your mind. So journaling was another thing that really helped me out. Another thing that I started to do was meditate. I started to sit in my own thoughts and not act on those thoughts. And that's honestly, that's the hardest thing to do. Not acting on an impulsive thought as someone who's now leaning fearful avoidant was a hard thing for me to do. And I still struggle with that to this day. But you know what? I kind of identify what exactly is happening. I identify, like, nope, this is the FA coming out. Nope, I'm not about to just react. I'm going to learn how to respond. So this is something that I still do. I've gotten so much better. I would say that the majority of my attachment style experience now is a secure person, but I'll lean fearful, especially when something doesn't go my way. It's the little boy in me starts to come out, start to throw a temper tantrum. And then I have to put him in his place and say, you know what, we're not that old person anymore. We're trying to be better. We're trying to be the adult here. And whenever I work with my clients, I talk to them about, all right, are you being hijacked now by that immature part of yourself, or the person who didn't have their needs met? So to recap on my journey, I started out with going back and educating myself, going back and reviewing all the things that I learned about attachment style theory. Went off to school, got myself certified in attachment styles, did some other coaching, did some other trainings. I started journaling, started making sure that my thoughts were actually real thoughts and not something that was made up to fit a narrative that I wanted to run. And number 3, I started to meditate a lot. Right now, my practice is I'll go over to the YMCA, I'll sit in the steam room or the sauna, and I'll just be present with my thoughts. Just let them do what they're going to do. I don't have my phone. I don't have my notepad. So I can't act upon those thoughts. I just have to just let them be. Let them play around at the dog park of thoughts and not act on them. So if you found this video of any value, please like, comment, and share. You can reach out to me in my other social media accounts. Instagram is I am Coach Court. TikTok is I.am.coachcourt. And of course, YouTube is Coach Court. And always remember, when you go be loved, you'll never have to find it. God bless.